Welcome back to WeWork Labs Leadership Academy. Thank you for joining us today as we kick off our third and final module. For those of us who are new to us, WeWork Labs Leadership Academy is a 3-month personal growth bootcamp aimed at transforming our WeWork members into more impactful leaders. And today, as I said, we're kicking off our third module, which is all about managing people and leading teams. And as I already said, I'm excited to see today's speaker, Kate Carney. Some of you might remember Kate from the Female Founders Circle program that we ran last summer, and we're so thrilled to have Kate back on the WeWork Labs virtual stage. As an experienced lawyer, strategic advisor, and senior executive, Kate has over a decade of experience advising public and private companies, C-suite executives, and investors. And to name just some of Kate's impressive achievements, actually, I just found out about those today, Kate. You never told me. At age 29, you were named general counsel of a $6 billion hedge fund, and you ran a marathon in less than 4 hours in Rome. I found that out on your new website.
Yes, well, there you go. Fun facts.
Now Kate describes herself as a recovering lawyer and has actually started her own company, Kate Carney Consulting, where she provides business and leadership coaching as well as legal counsel to entrepreneurs, founders, creatives, technologists, and innovators. Kate, so glad to have you with us again. Thank you for your time.
Happy
Without
to be
further
here.
ado, take it away.
All right, are we sharing screen here?
I'll let you share the screen. And
Okay.
I got the polls ready to go. We have some polls
right.
for all of you.
Well, and I'm sure I'm gonna forget a poll because I never actually remember polls, but I find them so fascinating at the end of the day.
Just let me know whenever you want to launch one. I've got them all ready to go.
Okay. So hello, everybody. As Stephanie said, we're going to talk mostly about teams and engaging teams, but what I want to do is sort of set the stage. And so, the point of all of this is to make a transition from founder to CEO successfully. That is how you are going to scale, and hopefully you're going to do it without completely and utterly burning yourself out, which means we've got to get the foundation correct, and that is all about leveraging your greatest asset, which is going to be your time. All founders are extremely busy, as I am sure you know. Females in particular cite work-life balance as one of their top 3 reasons they struggle to start a business or grow a business. So, men or women, whether you are working with kids at home and doing the homeschool thing, or elders, or managing the household, or just your friends and family, or exercise, or whatever it is, right? It is very hard to find a balance, and COVID has sort of blended the lines and made it more challenging. The problem is, eventually, you may hit a point of burnout, and for founders, that ends up looking like you lose sight of your vision and your enthusiasm. You're tired, you're irritable, and that has an impact on productivity and problem solving and the morale of your team. And so everything slows down. And so quickly to talk about a little time management, which I think is really important in terms of prioritizing your time. I'm sure there's hundreds of tricks and hacks and whatnot out there, but I'm going to focus on 2 that I think are really important. And the first one is boundaries. And that is setting expectations, right? Those are your non-negotiables. That is about what you need to get the job done. And so whether that is, for your team, I'm not answering emails between 6 and 9 because I value time with my family. Or if it's just thinking about work, it is, what do I need to get my best work done? What kind of communication do I like? Do I like to do it alone? Am I better in groups? What support and information do I need? What kind of structure and setup do I need? And then communicating all of that. Again, for women, they tend to be people pleasers. And so there's this real challenge to say no. And there's some to say no for everybody. And so I say it's a practice, right? So start with maybe the things that you really don't want to do, or, the people you don't know, that all these virtual coffees that are, popping up on your calendar. I find it really hard to say no to the things that I want to do, like a great networking event with fabulous founders doing really cool things, or a webinar that I really want to tune into, or that family Zoom call happy hour. I'm not saying say no to everything, but I would say you have to realize you can't do it all. And there are a lot of demands on your time when you are scaling. And so you really have to be conscious about saying no to things. Honestly, it will build respect for those around you. You don't want to be seen as a pushover. And I think most importantly, which most forget, is expect people to push up against those boundaries. It's not set it and forget it. It is constantly communicating, and people are going to be, virtual doors popping in and asking for, here's a minute, can I have a minute, which turns into an hour. So be really conscious. Which I will throw in Stephanie first poll. Who thinks they're very good at setting boundaries? Be honest.
And the poll is launched.
All right, let's see.
Over 2/3 of people have voted. Yes, we're getting there.
I'm always curious. I love polls.
All right.
I'm going to go with I try, but I don't enforce them very well. I think that might be me.
Oh, we have a few more coming in late. All right, let's end it here. Let's look at the results. And I'll share so everyone can see.
Okay, so most are in my bucket, but we have a good number that set healthy boundaries. Awesome. That is impressive. And then you've got the people pleasers, which happens. Interesting. Okay, fun. I just think it's interesting to see what people, where they are in the spectrum. So the other piece is going to be time blocking, which is just one of many hacks. That is essentially putting everything on your calendar. I mean, everything. So if you're talking personal, that exercise, that hour of homework you have to check. And when it comes to work, it is literally all the tasks and all the activities that you have in a day. You want them all on your calendar. You want to estimate how long they are going to take. You will get better at estimating certain things for sure. And then I tell founders to put an hour on their day for what I call free think. It is super important all the time, but particularly as things continue to be fluid and we are not certain what the future looks like, you really need to be stepping back and thinking about strategy and thinking more creatively and innovatively. And you can't do that if you don't block off time. Take breaks. 10-minute breaks are great. Get up, walk around, no phone. There are studies that say people work really great in 90-minute blocks. So maybe that works for you. And then remember, it's all about prioritizing. So maybe you're all familiar with the 80-20 rule, which is basically 20% of what you do accounts for 80% of your work. So really want to focus on that 20%. You're a founder, every day there's a fire drill. Everything feels like a fire drill. It seems urgent, but I'm asking you to really focus on what are the revenue generating activities. So seriously, what will generate revenue? What are the drivers of your revenue? And focus there. So if it's right now you're focused on sales and you need a bigger sales team, then your focus is on hiring the right salespeople. That's where your time and your energy are. So be very careful to be conscious. And finally, only 2.5% of people can effectively multitask, which we all try. And I think most of us are doing it unwittingly because we are surrounded by distractions everywhere, but really be conscious of focusing and tuning out noise because it is ineffective. It wastes time. It means you're going to be less effective at your job. Your output's going to suffer. It'll be lower quality. And so try really hard not to multitask. So, that just sets the bar and the standard to be conscious of your time because that is one of the hardest things to manage as you continue to scale because the demands just keep getting bigger, right? The role just keeps getting bigger. The problem's harder. The more time you spend interacting with stakeholders is a lot more. And so the demands are going to be hard, which takes us into what are those demands, right? So what is this transition to the role of CEO? And it starts with really getting away from it's my baby to it's a business. And I say that because when you're a founder, right, the business is an extension of you. It is your friends probably and networks that you hired, how things get done is part of your personality. Your identity for most of you is probably really wrapped up in your business. The successes of your business feel like personal achievements. And at some point when you are scaling, you really have to separate that. It's a business, right? It's separate from you. The decisions are about what's best for the business. Maybe that means letting go of an original idea you had during COVID. Maybe it is about a strategy pivot you need to make that you're struggling with. But it really starts with understanding how that role changed. And so, as a founder, I would say your execution, you are ideas person, and then as a CEO, you are a leader and a manager. You are no longer in founder mode, that heads down, in the thick of it, in the weeds, center of everything. That isn't going to work as a CEO. You really have to step back. Your job becomes culture, hiring and developing your managers, encouraging collaboration, putting systems in place, and being the key to communications with all of your stakeholders, right? So that's a pretty big job. It requires competencies that most founders don't have. Honestly, most of us don't have unless you've been a CEO of a company before. And so all this fear creeps in. Can I do it? Am I smart enough? Will I fail? Will I let people down? And that starts with having a growth mindset, a belief that with hard work and learning, you can take on new skill sets and have new abilities and grow as a person, as a leader, that it's possible. So this growth mindset is really important. And I came across this article the other day by Reid Hoffman, who is founder of Masters at Scale and really is all about scaling businesses. And he, this is just for you to look at, but this was a list of entrepreneurial mindsets that he said he finds in most successful founders, and that founders tend to have like 2 of them, right? And you want most of them if you can, and you can get them all with a growth mindset. So just a thought, this is an interesting line list. But again, it all comes down to having that growth mindset. And that means you're either going to read about it or you're going to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about and have experience. So very early on, it is about mentors, it is about advisors, it is about peer networks, it is coaches, leadership programs, webinars like this, and what WeWork is doing. That's how you up-level your skills. I am not saying you have to be good at everything. In fact, you really have to look in the mirror and say, what am I good at and what am I really sucky at? So are you a marketing guru? Are you sales, the tech whiz, finance? Maybe those are your strong suits and maybe there are weaknesses. I would also ask you to always think about, as you scale, do you want to be CEO? And that sounds odd, but it's a question. Some people aren't meant to be a CEO and some don't want to. I had a client who had gotten a patent and works on athleisure for plus size. And, there is this idea that as she grew, she just said, I don't want to be CEO. I want to be execution. I want to be in the weeds. I don't want to be CEO. And that's great, really great that you can acknowledge that about yourself. I also have a CEO that I work with who literally makes every mistake possible that I will talk about today and really shouldn't be CEO. And his investors have told him that, and he has still not stepped down. So at some point, you are going to fill in the skills gaps around you. That is what you're supposed to do. And you are supposed to take yourself out of the middle. As you scale, you ultimately become a bottleneck. You see it all the time. And that is when your revenues stop growing. And so you really need to figure out a way to remove yourself from the middle. And that means hiring the right team, right? It's all about your team so they can lift you up and you can have more time to do what you should be focused on. And so, we'll talk about how to build a team. It's really important to have the right people around you. I will say that one thing to think about, COVID has sped up what was already a trend, which is this move to independent workers, by which I mean consultants and freelancers. They are a great way to fill out your team very early on. They're a great way. And honestly, some of these relationships are 10 years you can have with a consultant. And so if you don't want to bring on a full-time or you can't afford a full-time salary or the job oftentimes is not full-time at the beginning, you should absolutely use these guys and gals. One note that I think is changing, which is you should treat them just like you treat every other member of your team, okay? Because they aren't separate. It's not meant to be temporary or these outsiders, or it doesn't work as well. It's a relationship. So even on early on, that's when you're hiring a lot of freelancers and consultants, but think about it as a relationship and bring them into your team. And so how do you find the right team? It's going to start with your strategy, and you're going to break it down into your strategic objectives, and then think to yourself, what experience do I need? What functions do I need? Because I likely haven't had all the function heads. What skills do I need? And then you're going to go out with a very clear job description to the market. The clearer you can be, the better you're going to attract the right type of people. I know it's hard. I know either hiring your first hires is scary and difficult, or senior ones, or finding good talent. Inc. magazine just came out with a study from their top 500 CEOs, and 33% of them said that they get a lot of inexperienced or insufficient experience with the talent pools that they have. And I hear it all the time that it's hard to find talent. Hopefully that's a little bit different right now. The talent pool is rich, sadly, and some are willing to go for cheap. So it's a good time if you are building out your team. I certainly appreciate that. Right now, maybe you aren't hiring a team, it's too early, or maybe you are hiring freeze, you don't have the money, but as you think ahead, really think about the team you need and the skills you need, and think about it earlier than you would otherwise. What I see over and over again are founders wait. They need somebody, they rush, they make a rushed hire. It is the wrong hire. And then there is this hesitancy or fear or whatever it is to fire. And so then they just keep this person on indefinitely and they're not performing. So be careful, take your time, do the right process, go through the process. The other challenge for many as they scale is you're going from a generalist to a specialist, right? So you have this early team that are wearing a ton of hats. They are that loyal initial team. And as you scale, you need specific functions and you need skill sets. And so oftentimes these function heads are going in above what was your initial team. There are certainly founder stories out there, or you can talk to friends at other companies that do continue to promote their initial team into roles that they do not have experience in. It has worked out for sure. I think it's, maybe it's a question of if you have the time for them to learn it and make mistakes, but that may not be the best use of their skill set. And so think about it before you just, keep them on because they were loyal and you keep promoting them and they don't necessarily have the skill sets, which means you're probably bringing in senior folks, which founders hesitate. I get it. It's an expensive mistake, both in the time and energy to find them and hire them. They're also a big paycheck if you get it wrong. You're engaging in this relationship. You want it to be the right person. Every single founder to Steve Jobs, right, has said to be successful, you want to surround yourself with A pluses, right? People who know more than you. So you want to get it right. Most importantly, for all of these folks, you want them to be a good culture fit. To me, that is probably the most important. There's a lot of very skilled people out there, very talented, but you need them to be a culture fit. And I say that because one bad apple can really have a negative impact on everything from teamwork to productivity to morale. I had one founder tell me that the way he thinks about it is every one he hires, he's going to end up with 10 more just like that. And so think about that ripple effect. If you've got one bad apple, it just keeps multiplying as you scale, and then things start to fall apart. And so be really intentional about that. Think about the culture you want. Think about the values that are important to you. So maybe that is enthusiasm or curiosity or comfort with ambiguity. Teamwork is a good one always, right? So ask questions that get beyond the skill sets and spend the time getting to know somebody, whether it's personal level or just in how they think and who they are. Maybe you ask, what's your superpower? I don't know, that one seems really popular lately. I've been asked it at like 2 different women's meetings, but it's a good one, right? It makes you think about what they are bringing to the table. It could be, a prior difficult relationship with the manager and how they took care of that, but just get to know them. It's really important. Um, Again, that same CEO survey, 34% said that they struggle and that they find mostly people that are not a great culture fit. So it takes some weeding through for sure. Um, and by culture fit, I do not mean everybody is the same, right? You absolutely need diversity. That is diversity of culture, race, gender, age. For some of you, you might have watched The Intern, Anne Hathaway, which I loved, but right, age really played out well for her. You need different perspectives. This is when you want to encourage dialogue and debate, ask people's opinions, ask them for their ideas. This is where you are going to get innovation, and this is how you are going to stay competitive. So it's super important to have diversity around the table. And so think outside traditional networks when you're hiring, because oftentimes underrepresented groups are not necessarily a part of those traditional networks, and you just want to go broad and hire as diverse as you can possibly hire. So now that you've got this great team, right, it's the core now of what being a leader is, and that is engaging your team. And I throw up these stats, which you can see basically, but what I would say is studies across the board show one in engaged teams always outperform. 202% is ridiculous. And disengaged employees cost the company a lot of money. And so it is absolutely important to think about engaging your team. What I mean by engaged is enthusiastic and committed to your mission, to the company, and to the company's success, right? That is going to keep them motivated. That is going to keep performance high. That is going to keep your culture very high. And so I would say number one is getting buy-in, right? You need them to be on board with what you're doing. And that means telling a compelling story over and over. So I'm just gonna, here are 3 ways to get buy-in. I think this is like the most important thing you can do to keep your team engaged. So tell your why. What is your mission? What impact do you want to have? Tell it over and over again. This is not a once a year thing. Find ways to bring it up in one-on-ones, weekly meetings, share your client wins, right? Client testimonials, a press piece, a shout out, how you impacted a client last week, whatever you can share, celebrate, what you're proud of or grateful for. Maybe you share how an employee exemplified a company value. And lastly, you are the one bringing clarity and focus to your team about that vision and what the strategy is, because it's very easy to get distracted constantly, whether that's ideas coming in or opinions, but really your job is to keep them focused. And once you've got them bought in, right, and they're on board and they're excited, you need to tie those strategic objectives to their actual function, to their tasks. They want to be part of the success, right? You've got them now hooked to this vision, and now they want to be part of the success of that vision. And so you've got to tie what they're doing so that they don't feel like they're just this worker bee that's not part of the solution and the progress. You can do that with performance metrics or KPIs that give them something to achieve towards. When they hit those, think about rewarding them. I don't mean money, but you can certainly give them a shout out in a team meeting. Public recognition goes a long way. Maybe there's some kind of contest and there's a gift card at the end of the day. You can let somebody present on behalf of their team at a meeting, or if there is a project that is outside their wheelhouse that they've expressed a real interest in, maybe you let them work on that. Millennials and Gen Z have actually said that professional and personal development is more important to them than money. So give them this opportunity to stretch themselves and to develop and grow. And as you do that, it is really about elevating them, coaching them, empowering them, and you stepping out of the way. Again, it's giving up some control, which is hard, but if you don't, you won't grow. So you give up the control and you delegate. This is really the heart of delegation, right? You delegate outcomes, you don't delegate process. So you tell people what the outcome is that you're looking for, and then you step back and you let them figure out how to do the job, right? What is the best way? You let them figure it out. You are there to support and to coach and to see your way out of the center of things. And then lastly, you want to listen. And so you want people to be heard. They want to feel valued. They want you to think you care about their opinions, their ideas, solutions they have. Again, encouraged to be in discussion around the Zoom rooms. Ask really open-ended questions about a strategy or an idea you have or whatever you're working on, and then leave silence so that people can actually think about it for a minute and participate. And then obviously the most important, or one of the most important forms of communication and listening, is going to be feedback. Younger generations are hungry for it, but feedback is going to be beneficial to everyone. And so I propose just one framework that is a common framework and it's effective. It's called SBI when you're giving feedback. And that is, you are going to focus on a specific situation, right? And so you're going to give the when and the how and the where and give context, and don't give generalities of like, great job, right? That doesn't help anyone. Great job at what? How? This is why it's also important to give timely feedback sometimes. Don't just wait for those, semi-annual and annual reviews that a lot of, founders do, just because they aren't as like thoughtful and mindful about timeliness. B, state the behavior that you observed. It's a behavior you observed, not somebody told you about, and reserve judgment and assumptions. And then impact, you want to talk about the impact it had on the business. This is just one way for you to think about it in terms of framework that can or cannot be helpful. But this is, it's so important to give feedback. So I think I've got a poll question on how comfortable are you giving feedback? Right? For some people, it's just they get it's part of their job and they're comfortable, and some people hate it. Dun, 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 dun. What do we think? Split? Okay. People feel really comfortable for the most part, or sometimes it depends. It absolutely a lot of times depends on the person and the situation, right? How difficult is the feedback? How difficult is the person? Great leadership is about knowing your team and getting to know each person on an individual basis. I always say, or use this as an example for me, it's like, I want the trainer at the gym that's just yelling at me that I'm stuck and I'm not doing a great job and like, keep going, keep going. That would probably mortify somebody else, and they want their hand held, right? Everybody's different. So definitely get to know your team. And then I would say, obviously you want to get feedback. Most important, again, if you want to grow into the CEO role, you need feedback. Hopefully you're familiar with 360 reviews, though a very, very successful founder the other day on a podcast said she didn't know what that was, which was shocking. But right, you want feedback back. It's just anonymous feedback. It's a combination of surveys and long form answers that you're collecting. You may or may not be able to read all of that on the screen. Hopefully you can see it, but it's an example from Sadie Lincoln, who started Bar3, which maybe some of you guys out there don't know, but it was one of the original bar studios that came out. And she was very successful, and she opened all these stores in many cities, and she was trying to continue to scale. And then all of a sudden things kind of stalled. And she really, as she was scaling, couldn't figure out what it was. And so she did a 360. And as you can see, it was really the thing she cared and valued most and said she valued was what a few people like gave back feedback that was not what she was doing. So it was like horrifying to her, right? As she said, it brought me to my knees. She also thought about bowing out, right? Do you bring a different CEO in? She took a step back. She worked with her support system on processing it. And then she obviously put herself actually back out there in front of the hot seat and talked to her team. And she stayed on, by the way, as CEO and continued to develop. And so I say 360 is really, really important. As that says, she reached out to her support system, which is key. So build your network and do it sooner than you think you need it. That is the rule of thumb.
Kate, we have another poll.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. See, I told you I don't remember the polls, but all right. How happy, comfortable are you all getting feedback?
Yes, here we go.
On the flip side of it,
oh, these polls are anonymous, by the way. All right, I think we have a good amount. Let's take a look.
Okay, good. That's a really positive number. I like that. Great, wonderful, good. You will continue to develop as CEOs. There you go. And I love polls because it gives you an actual sense of what the audience says. I know the new thing is drop your response in the comments, but how can you track what the actual results are? So I like polls. Anyway, build your network. Startups with advisors grew 3.5 times faster and raised 7 times more capital. There was a study that founders that were guided by other entrepreneurs that were successful found themselves 33% of the time in the top performers, which was described as something, but it was, very great performance. Either way, your team's going to get you so far. They're priceless. They're going to be your daily mentors and sounding boards and advisors, but you need external advisors. You need, whether that's mentors, again, informal, formal advisors. Definitely you need, it could be your board, which you should rely on. If you take on investors, it can be your investors. And most importantly, it should be other founders, right? They get what you're going through, not only in the questions you face, but also that emotional roller coaster that you are on. And I would say I had a conversation with a founder of a home goods line that she started, and it makes hundreds of millions of dollars now. And we were talking about what she was worried about at 10 to 15 million in revenue. And she was like, oh God, hiring was my hardest problem. And I was managing and I was still executing. And I had no time for anything else. And when she got much bigger and scaling got harder and the questions got harder and the problems more complex, she realized that her circle got smaller and smaller and smaller, right? The people that have gone through what you're going through or can give really strong advice and have that experience, that becomes much smaller. And so then she had to go out and network and find these groups, which have grown faster. Here hindsight is probably not 2020. I don't know, but my guess is probably. So it's important to get out there and think about it. Nobody ever did it on their own for sure. And you need that external perspective. And so, look around the Zoom room. If you can, I guess you can't all see each other, but I'm sure Stephanie has you all connected somehow. And so definitely make relationships with your peers from now, no matter what, and keep them as you grow, and go out and look for advisors and mentors and people that can help you along the way. And the same way with your team, you are going to want to go out there and tell a compelling story, tell your story, get people excited, get them committed to what you're working on so that they want to help you. And I think that takes us to the last poll question, which is about how much time do you all think you spend on networking? And I don't mean out networking at events per se. I mean, that definitely counts, but also with your advisors or with board members and mentors, continuing to develop that relationship. That's also part of networking. I don't mean, traditional ideas of networking.
Thank you so much for joining, Kate. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom. So great to have you back. Thank you, everyone, to all our Leadership Academy participants and anyone who might have joined for the first time for sticking with us through the end. For all WeWork Labs members, we invite you to join our WeWork Labs weekly huddle that is starting now. And everyone else, I hope to see you again on Thursday for our next session, which will be all about building relationships. We'll have sales leader Jerry Long Jr. with us, who is a true master of relationship building and also very entertaining. So yeah, fasten your seatbelt. This will be an fast-paced session on Thursday. And Kate, you're of course welcome to join us too.
Thank you. I like it, right? Relationships, go network.
It's all about networking. So we'll be deep diving into that.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me. Very nice to meet everyone virtually.
Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.